July 2nd. And we're continuing the conversation on, turn over there so they can see. I have a PowerPoint for the recording people too, but there's three things tonight. This is day 5 of a 3-week cleanse. So cleansing will be a topic. The personal evolution of the soul being tied to your bug evolution in your gut is an ongoing conversation. This is week 3 of that, which is very compelling. And then finally, what's the last one? I had a third one. Oh, I had a virus thing I want to bring up. A real quick 5-minute, maybe or less, blurb to help you understand viruses from Craig's perspective. I had a teacher that had the KIS system, and his KIS system means keep it simple. And this guy has got a 6-month waiting list out in Houston, Texas as a practitioner. So we're here to sort of, I'm a tie together kind of guy in the medical health world. I'm the closing picture. You know, people go and see all the other people and you know, get anywhere, and then they're finally ready to surrender to the divine, which isn't me. I'm just standing there at the portal like the two, you know, those churches in Europe, they've got the 2 gargoyles at the steps going up. What do you think those gargoyles represent?
Demons.
Demons that are guarding what?
Knowledge.
Because demon means daemon, which means divine entity. So they might appear vicious, like some of those Tibetan deities you see. They look pretty awful, don't they? But the point's to see through them. They're just phenomena. So what are they guarding? That's it's all metaphorical too. This is about our inner journey. So what do we run across? What is this world made out of?
Below. The directions and the elements.
We live in a world of duality. Any artist knows that. You need to use depth on a 2-dimensional surface with light and dark shading to represent 3 dimensions, right? We live in a world, unfortunately, you know, that's based in love and hate, good and bad, inside, outside, top, bottom, king, queen, male, female, masculine, feminine. You know, this is the world that is the illusion. The alchemists call it the lesser world. The Hindus call it illusion. It's the theater. This is the theater playing itself out. And then there's the greater world, which in Hindu, you know, is sort of like reality. In alchemy, it's the greater world. And the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, you got that. This is the Son, the Father's the greater world, and the Holy Ghost is the bridge between the two. That's why you see the shamans, little birds, you know, shamans identify and shapeshift into birds. Well, the bird's the metaphor, traveling from one world to the other. Today for me was about being 1/4 here and the other 3/4 in this other world. They call it disassociation in psychology. That's not really what it is. They like to pathologize people and make money on it, don't they? So tonight will be very fascinating to see how it all turns out. Day 5 of cleanse. So the season's about the study of discernment because there's a lot of light. So when things are lit up, it's hard to hide shadow. So what do we, oh, that's great. Back to the gargoyles now.
Wow.
One gargoyle is one duality. What was the other duality? So what's beyond the duality?
Infinity.
It's best, I think, if we look at our own experience. What's beyond our inner turmoil? What's beyond the polarity and the divisiveness of the ego and the mind?
Inner peace.
Right. But to really get to that, there's a sort of a dark night where it's the void comes first, and the dark night of the soul. And that's the general path. You got to go traverse the desert before you get to the oasis.
Every single time?
Most cases, yes. There's the rare incarnated soul that my teacher Adyashanti says is like the 1 in a million. They wake up and they don't have to do any more work, but that's like 1 in a million. And you see Jack Kornfield's book, Chop Wood, Carry Water, before enlightenment and after, you know. And unfortunately for most of us, yeah, that's why we're here. We're here to work it out on some level. But it becomes more fun. That's the point. I mean, right? The point is to have it be theater, not a travesty, right? I could honestly say, many of us could probably say the same. My theater was a travesty of drama and failure and success and joy, like for me, it's like the whole cake. Yeah. But the point is to be conscious and enjoy it, because we see the world around us, the world of unconsciousness is being revealed. And the USA Incorporated is part of that. And I'm happy to say that on film and own it. If they want to come for me, I got nothing to hide. I'm here to represent the truth. My Facebook profile says so. Come on, come get me. I got all the good old boys. I grew up in this town, They come for me. They're coming for about 1,000 more too. And they're going to pay the price. I'm not being cocky. I have people that I'm beloved and I've saved so many people's lives. Not me personally, I just stepped up and said, oh, no, we're not doing it that way, So now it's back to the question earlier. There was a question about, well, how do you cleanse? First of all, let's get into that. So some of you have the handouts around you, right? So I can go to the share screen on the. So some of you that are new, let's have you answer the question I started lecturing about 25 or 30 years ago. What is health? People that are new. Homeostasis. There's no wrong answers either. So homeostasis, okay. You can make a copy for you, Drew. What is health? I think that's the cleanse cover master sheet. There we go. It's really interesting. There's this thing about distraction and fatigue that come in when we get faced with sort of like, oh, wow. Right, you see how the room kind of just, the container just dissolved momentarily.
There's only one new person here, right? Well, I guess Lotus is Lotus.
In a way.
All right, so you're directing the question to Lotus. What's your name again?
Lisa.
Okay, so Lotus and Lisa are new.
3 L's.
Yeah. So what's the root of the word? Let's go back to root language, like root vocabulary. What's the root of the word health?
Lack of dis-ease.
Well, that's Merriam's dictionary definition, which is so pathetic. What is the, because health isn't, that's the dumbed down standards.
Okay, what's the?
Every person that comes in my office says they eat healthy, and some of them have stage 4 cancer. So what I tell them is, yes, you do eat healthy by the dumbed down standards you were taught. Unfortunately, but now you're seeing Craig, and my teacher's standards are as big as the ceiling, and yours are like this big. So by their measures, you're pathetic. I don't say it that way, but for some people I do. I just fired this cocky Italian guy from Chicago. Boy, he was a real piece of work. He insulted me, and I went, bye. I don't get paid to be insulted. Are you kidding me?
We'll have to pay you more.
Yeah, that's what I told him. He wasn't paying enough. So if we're on this handout, and if you go down to basic cleanse rule, it's on page 3, I think, 5. Basic cleanse rules. It's sort of in a little box.
Yeah.
So there's that box, and there's another one below that, the page beyond that, ways to use our cleanse. And there's another chart that's not in here, but I'll get that to you guys. There's a chart that basically shows how you could passively cleanse. So a passive cleanse is basically starting from don't fry. Don't fry your foods. Don't heat your oils. I started my career off in the Kushi Institute in 1995-96 on the cancer program. I didn't really want to do that, but they were the only ones teaching Oriental medicine for any kind of a decent rate and work trade, and I wanted to live in New England anyways. So I was at this cancer facility, for months and almost a year. And so the first thing on the list was like, yeah, you got to change your salt. I saw a lot of salt stories. People with kidney pain, they change their salt and the kidney pain goes away. Hint, hint. Don't be using frickin' Trader Joe's and Costco pink salt because it's fucking contaminated. You got to be a salt snob in today's world, believe me.
You don't want salt at all.
Celtic is the only. Well, there's a reason why. John F. Kennedy was, had to take medications, but if he would have eaten good salt, he wouldn't have needed his medications.
What about black sulfur?
Yeah, there's good salts out there. So the point is, back there's certain things that salt can slow down cleansing, and for a woman that's approaching menses, salt will stop or halt a period too in excess. So you want potassium-rich foods. There's a female menstruation charts. The women who know this stuff, they know you get potassium-rich foods 3 to 5 days before menstruation and during menstruation, because you want that portal to open up and flush, right? You don't want to salt can congest, or sour can also congest. You want a portal to and get it all out, ideally. So frying and heating oils, we're talking about use of energy to get energy back. Remember, it's a return on investment model that I use in my Foundation One. Foundation One is your chooser function from your nervous system and your brain, and then which determines your blood sugar. Because if you're running a lot of glucose, then you're running a lot of insulin, and insulin's a degenerative hormone. It's associated with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome. It's the first thing we check for with ovarian problems, whether it's cysts or whatnot. It's like, hey, what's your insulin levels? One of my clients, she's running the same levels of fasting glucose that I am, 85 units fasting, but her insulin levels are twice mine. So what's that? It takes twice as much insulin for her to produce the same amount of blood sugar control than I do. So what does that tell you about her?
Insulin resistance?
That's right. She's got insulin resistance at the cellular level because her cell membranes are all screwed up.
You're right.
And there's also a leptin, L-E-P-T-I-N, a leptin or satiety receptor problem also with people that continue to eat and eat and eat, and it's connected to insulin. I'd be into the Carl and Craig conversation, actually. You don't hear the leptin insulin connection a whole lot.
I'm into it basal state instead.
Right, and so
So nice.
the satiety for some people comes from fat. And so if you're a protein type, blood type O from polar climates ancestry, carbs aren't going to give you that satiety. It's only going to be fat pretty much and protein. I know because I was that guy my whole life, eating carbs and overeating and gobs of food. And then when I was at the Kushi Institute, that's when it kicked in. I realized I was on a vegan diet and I was eating mountains of food and I was still underweight. It's like, what is that telling me? My diet's too carb heavy, and it took a box of cereal, a pint of Ben and Jerry's, like a quart of milk, 2 oatmeal raisin cookies this big. And there was one other thing that night,
Most people half a gallon of milk.
quart of milk with the cereal and the cookie, of course. And then the Ben and Jerry's after that, and then I woke up sick and hung over from sugar the whole day the next day,
And you could actually sleep on that?
Oh yeah, I slept like a baby. Yeah, it's psychotic, and then I realized like, that's probably why my libido's gone too at age 31. I probably should start eating meat again. And then I had to make the humble choice because I was doing it for spiritual reasons. I was a whole Diet for New America kind of guy. John Robbins, when he had his thing down there on Frederick Street, and fuck, I really didn't want to be a meat eater, And much to my dismay, I went back to meat and dairy and everything changed for the better. And I went, wow, as a nutritionist, I need to look into this. So then I went the other direction as a nutritionist over 25 years. And there's some people that just don't do well on paleo, some people that don't do well macrobiotic, some people that don't do well with carbs, some don't do well with fat. And you just sit there and you go, fuck, how do I find the way to type these people? And then I ran into Michael McAvoy a few years after that. And he was metabolic typing. And that's when I found the final key that allows me to type people. I was telling Katie, I have the tools to give you the right direction of a trajectory, but each of us right now, in this moment, is eating 5 to 10 foods that are downers for us. They're kryptonite and we don't know it. The fastest way is to eliminate them and add them back and notice the drop in energy or the brain fog. The 3 markers an hour after eating is you should have more energy, should have a clear consciousness, and you should have no cravings for anything else. And if you've never been through life like that like I didn't, I overate my whole life until I finally had fresh caught food in 2001 before my friend Lee died. Everything had been harvested out of the ground. Even the eggs were freshly picked and the cheese was freshly made and the bread was made from fresh ground sourdough, it's fresh ground sourdough flour, So I ate like this much food for the first time in my life and was satisfied. It was like, what the fuck? It's about the chi. I'm getting low chi food, low vitality food. Therefore I need a lot of it to get the same out. I had this moment 20 plus years ago going, we've been duped, man. We need to be getting the food fresh out of the earth. And it just confirmed what I'd already kind of known because that was about 10 years into my practice at that point. But it literally took going back to the ground and picking everything myself with my buddy and going, holy fuck. And realizing that the hunger cravings were in part, I needed protein and fat and I needed vegetables, and that was basically it. And when I go off that, I get corners of my mouth crack, hang nails, weird stuff. Me and Monica talk about it. Like cucumbers are my bad. Avocados are sometimes my bad. Lentils, squashes. I used to love lentil dough as a vegan. Are you kidding me? Stuff's delicious.
It's selective.
Well, there's a lot of different things, but to make it really simple for lay people is I'm putting in 10 units of energy and I'm only getting 5 back. So it's a net loss every time I eat lentils. So I have a degree in finance and business also. So I have to tell my clients, you gotta look at this as a business decision, right? You're putting in 10 and getting back 5. How do we know that? Because you're tired all the time. And when you eat the foods that are wrong for you, this hasn't been talked about either. This is a rerun for some of you guys. They were studying this in the 50s and the 60s. They were taking various types of meals, measuring white blood cell count in the blood before and after those meals. And they would see people, the more cooked food they ate, the more refined food they ate, the more wheat they ate, the more pasteurized dairy they ate, the higher the white blood cell count was an hour or 2 hours after they ate. And medically, they called it digestive leukocytosis, meaning a syndrome of the elevation of the white blood cells after certain types of meals. That was the predecessor work to autoimmune studies. But nobody made the connection, except for freaks like me and a few other people.
You mean awesome, intelligent, well-learned, wonderful people like you?
Yeah, thank you for the reframe. I love the word freak. It just I grew up in this town. Freak
I
show,
love the I
drama.
love the claiming and then the
Yeah, the reframe, the drama. Don't you love the drama? Drama sells. That's what. So back to the oils then. So by having a raw oil, the enzymes are already present in the oil, so it digests itself. In those same studies in the 50s, Edward Howell is the man, Howell. Edward Howell wrote a book called Enzyme Nutrition about all this. And they also discovered that the stomach, the human stomach, is like a cow's stomach to some degree. And there's an enzyme stomach, he called it. And that's why when you eat raw food, you get a little bloated up here because it's the upper stomach. And that's our cow stomach, where the raw food digests itself for 3 to 4 hours, ideally. And then it drops into the lower stomach, where the acids are. And we're not taught that.
Is cabbage harder to digest than like romaine lettuce?
Well, for some of us, then the Ayurvedics come in, because I'm a cross-dresser. I've learned all these traditions. They talk about vata derangement. So cabbages are high in sulfur, and sulfur causes internal wind, which translates as vata. The Chinese call it wind, internal and external wind. And then vata is the air element in Ayurveda, so it matches up perfectly, actually.
I thought they called that flatulence.
Well,
No, they call it evil.
the worst case of internal wind internally is actually insanity in Chinese medicine. And it's based in a faulty heart mind in their system.
Heart, mind.
Heart mind. And tip of the tongue stuff. Remember from the assessment?
Yeah.
The redder the tip of your tongue is relative to the rest of your tongue, that's the hotter your nervous system or your heart mind is. That's one of my markers of diagnosis, actually. So I think that's, people talk about raw veggies and raw fruits, but those are low caloric foods. You want to get your caloric foods raw also, ideally. And so fat is by far the most calorically dense food we have. So avocados are right up there. I've always had this skepticism with avocados, however, because the macrobiotics on their big veggie charts, it's in column 3, which means generally avoid. And I asked all my macrobiotic teachers back in the day, why? Because I said so. I'm just like, shut up and tell me why. It's a dogma. Somebody said back 50 years ago, and it's like, so I never got to the bottom line of why avocados were viewed so poorly by the macrobiotics.
Yeah, the scientists have it.
There's been no answer. I could never.
It's like the COVID stuff now, right? It's like, oh my God.
Well, it's on all the list for good fats.
That's what.
It's on the list, on everybody's list for healthy,
No,
but
it's
why
not
then
to
when
eat
I
it.
eat it, sometimes I feel like crap.
O-type isn't supposed to eat it. That's what the website said that I told you about. It says no
It's
avocados.
right. I have all the tables and the paperwork for that. So you don't even need to go look at the book. I can say, here's it. What I have is the positives and the negatives for each blood type. I took out a Diodamo's book. I had one of my apprentices at the time type it up. And so the neutral foods are left off, which is nice. That saves paper space. So anything that's a poison or a medicine for each blood type is listed, but that's lab work stuff. That's protein lectins reacting to blood cells from each blood type. It's not in vivo.
Do you test for that?
I don't like the allergy test. If you don't know your blood type, yeah, you can get it done for $10, I think.
But there are better ways that pulse.
Right. So the fastest way is you take, this is Dr. Arthur Coca. No, COCA. I have all the paperwork. You can even just type it into Google, Dr. Arthur Coca food allergy test, and it'll pop up. And so there's a book around that. And so the Coca system is based on a form of kinesiology where the full extended system is there's a sheet you fill out every day. So you take your pulse when you wake up. You take your pulse before breakfast. And you write down what you ate for breakfast. Take your pulse 60, 90, 120 minutes after that meal. You take your pulse before lunch. And then 60, 90, 120 after lunch. And then before dinner, if you're eating 3 meals a day. Then 3 pulse readings after that. And you take your pulse before bed. And what you're seeing is tendency. So if you do that long enough, you start to see like, my pulse is always elevated with lentils in the meal. My pulse is always elevated in the morning, but not at night. And that's how you identify that there's an allergen in your bedroom. You can do it yourself. Take your pulse when you go to bed, take your pulse when you wake up. If your pulse is higher when you wake up, you've got a problem in your bedroom. Your pulse should always be lower after sleep. Your temperature and your pulse should be much lower after a night of sleep.
So if you have the thing that determines your oxygen, that also gives you your pulse, you could do that too.
You could use, yeah, that would,
That thing's great.
that thing is very quick and easy. Yeah, it's nice. It's certainly faster than doing this,
Better than your Apple.
but it is an approximation because it's not, it's seeing a sort of a sine wave of,
This is a little
so
more
this way
accurate.
is more accurate ultimately.
Except if you have no fingers from a stroke.
Yeah, you could try it. This is a nice
You
pulse
can
right
borrow my
here.
Apple Watch, Jay. I don't wear it anymore.
I give myself.
Yeah, I had another client today. I said, get that thing off. There's an acupuncture point right where the watch is.
Yeah.
I haven't worn a watch in 40 years and there's still a white spot there that won't tan. From wearing a regular watch for 6 years, from age 9 to 15. And then I was in high school one day and it's all sweaty. I was sitting in class and I didn't know anything about anything, but I went, I'm never wearing a watch again. This doesn't look good. It's all white right there and everywhere else was tan. And I was like, this is, yeah, it's just a battery watch. So if you take your hand and start at the line on the wrist and go down, there's a point right there. And that's pericardium 6 or inner gate. Point on the other side is called outer gate. That's a scary point to have an iPhone watch on, folks.
Oh, yeah.
Inner gate to your inner being, outer gate to your inner being kind of thing,
So
like,
attach this a little bit. Like,
these are great nausea points. Actually, you can hold this area right here. I think that's why sometimes you find yourself rubbing your face or something. I think we're all doing acupressure. We just don't know what we're doing. All right,
Yeah.
moving Sheila.
So if somebody gets seasickness, they can do this.
There's bands that they sell that pressure point.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the second toe, right above the second toe is the best point for any kind of nausea, seasickness.
I know they did it. I know lots of people.
Oh, sure. It's stomach 44 if you want to look it up. ST44. You can go to Google Images. And what do you need over there? So we're trying to get the point of this part of the discussion is to go through, can we cleanse spontaneously without a whole lot of effort? So the first one, heated oils, is great because it's a good calorie source. Proteins next. We're not really taught to eat raw animal protein, but that's the way to do it. Unless you got bad gut problems, then you got to cook it. But generally, that's been proven in my world 1,000 times over with the Primal Diet and Agnew and the Western Pricers and personal experience. And we don't, the germaphobes sort of lost out because Pasteur even admitted it. And so I'm going to go over what a virus actually is in a minute. So your protein foods are loaded in calories. So this is where it goes all the way back to 100 years ago, and there were references to arthritis. So what did they call arthritis 100 years ago? You can't answer. John Harvey Kellogg, all those guys in the 20s and the 30s, they were calling arthritis something. It relates to the later studies in the 50s and the 60s. Hint, hint.
I don't remember that far back,
Yeah.
actually.
Look, I'm only 200, man. They were calling it cooked food disease. Cooked food disease.
Mainstream, mainstream,
Wow.
because it wasn't outlawed yet.
Arthritis was called cooked food. So why would they call it cooked food disease? Add 2 and 2 together now. What were we just talking about?
Because fats and oils.
What is your connective tissue made out of? I was just telling you. calcium gets way overrated? Protein. So when you cook that egg, that clear egg white, it turns white. That's the damaging of the protein.
That's oxidation.
Has a certain form and shape and frequency, and then you put the heat on it, and then it changes shape, form, and frequency. Frequency, most importantly, because our cells are actually reading frequency. They're not reading chemistry. Our cells are reading frequency. We've been brainwashed the other way.
So eggnog with raw egg and it's actually better.
Yes.
Well, there's a certain frequency our cells are looking for. Just like we're looking for a certain type of person to nurture us that we feel good with, right? And avoid the ones, there's no judgment. Some people you don't feel good with and some you do, you know? And that's how it is with our bodies. I believe what we call our bugs, we've been talking about this, craving through us, they're not craving food and physiology, they're craving frequency through us. Remember, life is a process, and we've been dumbed down into the snapshots of life. Chemistry is nothing more than a snapshot of a particular parameter at a moment in time. We've come to worship the snapshots of life instead of life itself. So that's why when you see me, I go, are you heating up? Are you cooling down? What's the process? What's the trajectory you're in? Client earlier today, she's on a bad trajectory. That's why she came to see me. She already knew. She just needed me to validate and kick her in the butt a little bit because she needs a sergeant. I was happy to play the role. I like being a cocky, arrogant sergeant. And she needed that guy. I think I like my job sometimes, you know. I wasn't feeling good, I had headaches, like, oh good, I get to take all my anger out on her, you know, laugh out loud. I'm kidding, you know. I'm just drama.
I'm actually participating in the conversation somehow.
Drama. So you get your raw protein then. So when you damage your protein, the body is putting in damaged bricks to rebuild the house. You're a contractor. You want top-notch building materials, don't you?
Yeah.
So does the body. Oh crap, I got all this cooked meats all damaged and destroyed, these cooked eggs, this pasteurized milk. And we wonder why we got joint problems. We're making new body parts from damaged materials and wondering why we're all messed up. It's never, ever bad body. We have this thing, bad body, bad body. We should never chastise our body because it's always doing the best it can given its circumstances.
It's not the body that's giving over you, it's the other way around.
That's exactly right. I have all our trauma and wounds are up, so it's good when you identify them, like mine's abandonment. So what do? I preemptively abandon others first, so I don't get abandoned.
And so that you can be strong and independent.
When we see our patterns, then it just comes like a rerun. Oh, there's that pattern again. I don't have to play that out again. Thank God I can have a different theater now, right? You play around it and improv it, and oh, that's way more fun. So protein and fat are two ways to get excellent raw foods. Now, I had this, maybe it was Tim, he was asking me, how do I have a raw yam? Tim Welch, and I'm like, you know, I haven't thought about that in years. Like, how do you make a yam raw? You can juice the yam and the sweet potato, but oh my, potatoes, yams, and sweet potato juice. If you haven't done it, you should try it just for the experience. It's not that fun necessarily. Nobody's ever juiced a potato here before? Nobody's done potato juice?
I have. Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's like chalk. You
Yeah.
know?
And usually I can eat anything. And that was like,
Oh, it's just terrible.
It's for benefit.
Potato, you could have raw potatoes on the cleanse.
Raw, well, not on a type of.
Raw potatoes.
just grind it, just
Grate 'em?
grate them, sorry.
No, you make them into little
Soak them.
cubes and soak them in apple cider vinegar with the brine, and you got little
Yes.
pickled potato pieces. You
That's
know?
nice. That's a nice idea.
I've been trying to brine them in salt water because that's what all the recipes said, but it
Oh.
has not worked well.
Not worked well.
Yeah,
Potatoes are
I
only
think
good
I'm
with
I'm
lots
getting
of
the timing
butter
wrong.
and-
But yeah, you also can
Mhm.
grate potatoes and
Mhm.
then leave it in water
Yeah.
and you watch all the starch
Yeah.
go down to the bottom. And then the water itself is great for stomach disorders.
Mm.
This is a raw
Easily-
biology thing.
Yeah, easy to digest.
Easy to digest and it's got whatever else besides
Mhm.
pulling the starch out from the potatoes. And so it can stop diarrhea. It can have all these great capable things. And then on top of it, your potato that's left over doesn't have the starch and all the other worse things, and it's easier to eat raw.
Mm.
So you know, in World War II, there was a big shortage of food, and so there was some Danish people that were living off of potatoes, and it was a whole controversy because they didn't want people to know they could live on potatoes raw. You couldn't eat 100. You couldn't live on 100% cooked potato, but raw potatoes are very high in vitamin C, and the form of vitamin C that has tyrosinase and copper too.
So then
See,
what?
copper and this enzyme tyrosinase are involved within the whole food vitamin C complex. And then people talk about this ascorbic acid bullshit and calling it vitamin C and all injecting vitamin C injections. They're not vitamin C injections, they're ascorbic acid. It's part of the C complex. It's one of the chemical pieces. There's the chemistry addiction again. Vitamin C is the sunlight food because plants and animals make vitamin C from sugar. And we don't even know that. This kind of stuff they should be teaching us when we're 5 years old. You know, sunlight and water and all the stuff on the plant. They're making vitamin C. So vitamin C is our sunlight water soluble vitamin. And it's gone in 24 hours once you pick a plant. 80–90% gone. They've measured this stuff. And again, talk about vitamin C deficiency, collagen synthesis, you know, our joints depend on vitamin C. Wasn't it interesting that light's part of vitamin C? Yeah. Well, no, but that's ascorbic acid heavy. The darker colors are bioflavonoid heavy. Like your bioflavonoids, vitamin P, they used to call it. Monica, why do they call bioflavonoids vitamin P? Yeah, there's a quiz.
Come on, girl.
Yeah. We covered it, but not recently.
It's been a long time.
That's what you do. It's like, you know, because I've been there, you know, like, but after 10 years of repetition, at one point in my brain just snapped and it became instant access. So I feel for it because I know I've been there, but now it's all just comes right out. P, one clue is vitamin P means permeability factor. They knew this in the 20s and the 30s, 100 years ago.
The permeability we have to be careful of is the gut and the brain and all of these.
Why do you think
things.
we have a leaky gut problem? Because
Right.
we're vitamin C deficient and don't even know it because we're not getting fresh foods anymore.
Right,
We're getting, even at New Leaf, that stuff's 2 to 3 days old.
right.
Vitamin C is gone.
Even farmer markets.
That's picked that morning at best.
Yeah.
So if you get there
That's
right at
fast.
1, you probably lost half. You know?
Yeah.
You gotta eat it right away.
Then you got to eat it right away. Exactly.
Yeah.
Why do you think I've made the green juice smoothie here from the garden? That comes right out of the garden, right into the freaking blender and into your body. Well, no, I add kefir to it because then the probiotic, because juices break down instantly. But I've been running this theory, if you add yogurt or a probiotic culture to it, then the bugs eat the good stuff and then shit out even more good stuff. Everything eats and everything shits.
You remind me of Artemis.
Augustinus was my freaking hero, but I never even met him.
My hero too. I was on his diet for years.
Oh,
So she knows about
Okay.
Artemis.
Ellie used to say, "What are you doing? You look so amazing." I was eating everything raw, meat and everything.
Did you
I
stop?
see. So there we go. Got a
I
testimonial right
finally
there.
stopped. You know, I aspire to eat raw meat. I do eat raw meat.
It's just hard.
Sometimes it's the knife
hard,
too.
yeah.
I've been eating raw seafood and raw dairy and raw meat, and sometimes I just need a special knife to get thin enough to make it taste.
Especially the liver, you know, raw liver.
Oh yeah, raw liver. I make pate with raw liver and raw butter. Oh my god, it's so good. And a piece of raw garlic. Oh, it's fabulously delicious.
So,
I
Yeah.
Augustinus has like a cult following. You need to understand this.
Right.
We want to live.com. They're still.
Yeah.
They killed him. They killed him, man.
Oh, I know that.
Okay, so
He went to Thailand to get away, and then the balcony collapses magically
Right,
on the
right.
second day he's there.
right. They
they wipe everybody out this
before
year.
that. They attacked him in his car and shot him up with
He
something.
did.
Yeah, I read that somewhere.
So here's why, you guys. He was given 235 terminal cancer patients in Beverly Hills, I don't know, 20 years ago. 235. They were diagnosed by 3 physicians that said, you've got, I don't know, 6 months to live. Well, 231 of the 235 lived another 10 years.
I'm still listening.
Oh my God. How do you spell Augustinus?
Or it was
AAJONOUS. It's 2 A's.
Excellent. I always forget.
AAJON. What?
A less.
What's the
And then try the last name, Vonderplanets.
VANDER.
Augustinus Vonderplanets.
Planets. You know, with a Z at the end.
I wonder if he's banned on YouTube. You think his videos are still up on YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They are still
I
up.
think so.
You gotta watch some of his videos. He was so outlandish.
Oh, you should see. I mean, we
Oh.
had dinners in San Jose when he was there.
Oh, easy. We want to live.com. All one word. We want to live.com
And
is
he
a
also,
good way
he
to
always,
access.
always had a bowl of eggs. You know, if he wanted to eat, he could just eat some raw eggs.
So you see,
Easiest
it-
way.
it's great having a Augustinus person here because they're rare. So they were after him because they knew he was onto something. Just like Nicholas Gonzalez, they wiped him out a few years ago.
My aunt stopped.
That's right. They wiped him out a few years ago. They've been going after Cowan. Zach Bush, triple board certified MD.
Did they go
Me
after
and a
the
friend,
one
well,
after-
they're on Quack Watch now. They have him labeled as a predatory medicine practitioner.
And Northrop, they have on the top 12. I conversed with her and
Yeah.
anyway, she's on the top.
No,
12.
well, all those top 12s are on the Quack Watch top 12.
They're in my face.
And she was highly accepted before.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So back to vitamin P.
So P was permeability, bioflavonoids, and it's generally, you know, something's high in bioflavonoids because it's generally a darker color. So like your acerolas, your lemons, your oranges are generally higher on the ascorbic acid side. So you see these high vitamin C foods like, I'm going to pick on the vegan, truly natural vitamin C by, what's that company?
Health Force.
Yeah, Health Force. I met all them years ago in the 90s, and I thought he was a great formulator, except what I found out later was that acerola is very skewed towards ascorbic acid, and Royal Lee, the founder of Standard Process, who started his company in 1930, and it's still running, you know, top notch. That's why I only use them. He was the best functional nutritionist we've ever seen. So he discovered that the best form of bioflavonoids, for example, came from buckwheat leaf juice.
Right.
Who would have freaking thought of that? Takes a, it takes a, well, I won't say freak. It takes a well imaginative mind to come up with that. Well, in the spirit of Lotus.
Buckwheat leaves.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have a native buckwheat that the bees love here. And I don't know which buckwheat, but it's the Latin name is Cyruta, Cyruta. So he went around trying out what works, what doesn't work. And he was an empiricist. Okay, let's give these people a lot of pineal gland stuff and see what happens. Oh, look at that. Their lab work went over here. And then thyroid, what happened? Okay, over here. Oh, by the way, the Amish farm, they do sell water buffalo and cow thyroid by the pound.
Yeah.
I tried to buy some, but they were out.
Variety is the spice of life.
Well, they sell grams of thyroid, right, for big money. If you get a pound, that's like 4,000 servings of desiccated thyroid. I'm like, we should all be buying thyroid and just saving it and dehydrating it. And if somebody needs it, give them that. These fucking compounding pharmacists and make it all complicated. Just eat some freaking thyroid, man. Jesus. You know, I'm sitting in my backyard too, looking at, here's bioflavonoids too, is why do plants make flavonols or flavonoids? Because we're human centric, right? The whole world's about us, right? Right. So why do plants make them flavonols? They're not for us. They're usually the colors in the plant are usually the flavanol. Insects are one, right? They're trying to be pretty like the peacocks for the insects. Why else?
So the flavonoids have the color of all the citrus, and then all the bioflavonoids in the pith of the citrus.
So you got white flavanols and yellow and red, purple, blue, green. They're all over the spectrum.
Where are the purple and blue ones?
Proanthocyanidins.
Okay.
That's a flavanol
That's a
technically.
flavanol. I didn't
Technically.
realize.
Fancy name there.
Proanthocyanidins and the resveratrols are all in that large umbrella family of vitamin P.
Cool.
Because they're slightly astringent. Everything that's rich in bioflavonoids is, that's why I tell
Right.
people you don't use elderberry during an infection. Use elderflower. The berry is containing. You want to sweat and open up the pores. Sour closes down the sweating. So you want elderflower during an active infection, elderberry in between colds. This is a more skillful way to use it. If they're sweating a lot, sure, you can use elderberry to shut them down. That's how you also stop breastfeeding. You don't want to give sour. You want to give diaphoresis to open up the pores, open up the breast. You don't want to. I mean, you know, there's every now and then there's a woman that comes along. I just love it. They go, I want to stop breastfeeding. So this one, the record is 24 hours of this lady's breast shut off. She was so happy. They're all swollen and big. They were swollen. The kid was teething. You know, it's like, you know, whatever that was. It was a teething time, and she was just over it because the kid was chomping away on her nipples.
Like, done.
She was done. Yeah, she wanted to go further, but the kid was brutal. You know, she's like, I'm done. You know, so
And so you gave her sour stuff.
it was sage. Sage will just cut it right off. It's a drying astringent.
Right.
It's also a tonic for some people, actually. Like sage could work for you. It could probably work for you. Maybe you, but nobody else. It's calming.
Jay's the same with.
Oh, it's calming.
It's calming. It's calming, and it has a diaphoretic quality, but yet it also is astringent. Sage is calming. Yeah, the essential oil of sage is used calm. Want to move along this a little long. So if you're watching this video, you see this long digression here talk. If you look at this chart, what this chart's really telling you is that if you're going to be doing these things, then acknowledge that the most extreme fast is to do nothing. No water, nothing.
Dry fast.
Dry
I've
fast.
done 'em.
You've done
Oh,
it.
God,
Dry
yeah.
fast. Most extreme.
Fabulous.
Last September.
Fabulous.
I love the
Well, the Indian dancing, the rain dances and the sun dances, they ain't drinking or eating anything. They're hanging out there for what, 24 hours just dancing away. And
People cure cancer with dry
Yes.
fasting.
Yeah, you
it's the most,
Because your healthy cells can draw water from the atmosphere, but fucked up cells can't.
Yeah.
Cancer cells, they just die off.
And you have to
They
go
can't
into
come
it
back.
very hydrated and eat the right things
Really?
going into it.
For how long?
well, Ramadan, that's what Ramadan
It's
is.
like 36
They can't
hours.
drink water all day during Ramadan.
7 days?
They can't eat or drink all
Most
day.
people say
3 or
36
4 days.
hours. It's like,
Mhm.
don't do more than 36 hours. How long? did
I've
you
done
do
more
yours?
than that.
How long did you do?
I can't remember, it's been so long.
Dry fasting?
Yeah, dry fasting.
So not even water?
No
No,
water.
but you
water.
but you
Dry.
have to work your way up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Okay, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
just to keep this going. So that's the most extreme. The next most extreme is a water fast.
Yeah.
And then as you start adding things in, you slow down the cleansing, but then you keep yourself a little more comfortable. Because when you're fasting and cleansing, as I can tell you from 25 or 30 years of experience, is your psychic systems are more open, your boundaries are more open, and then you're going to receive the world's shit more easily. So you shouldn't be out there in the world if you're psychic and you're cleansing. You should be closed up in your room in the red tent, like the women do when they're bleeding, you know?
Or like we wish you would.
I mean, it's a nightmare for me. I'm trying to cleanse and I go out there in the world and it's like, oh, fuck, I just took on 3 more people's shit at the bank. Because I'm all opened up and I can't shut the shutters fast enough, you know? As soon as I make eye contact, it's right in me, you know? Sticky flypaper shit. So I'm just naming what happens to all of us. Hello.
Yeah.
You know, every person in this room, if you can tolerate me and hang out with me, then you're empathic. Otherwise, I'm gonna drive you nuts. You know,
Well,
to some degree, you know, I'm in there poking away because we need to wake up, folks, because we're still asleep and we think we're awake. I'll be the first to say, I know I'm still asleep. And that's the starting point, is to admit I'm asleep.
Yeah.
It's a humility, you know, like I'm up here leading people, but I still know I'm asleep in a lot of ways. You know? Don't assume you're awake. So water fast next. Sorry, this is a long digression. Water fast. So what's next? Juice, like adding juice in,
Yeah, green juicing,
green juicing, caloric free juicing, you could say.
caloric free juicing, that's good.
Then you might have calorie juicing after that, depending on your blood sugar balance. So for some people, that's where if they start eating calories like carrot juice, I might ask them to actually put some raw butter in with the carrot juice a little bit, so they don't have a glycemic crash. The protein, raw butter, yeah, you just melt a little bit in, maybe not even melt it, just let it. That would be the protein type, but the carb types would be in heaven. You know, but the protein types would be, oh, I'm so tired of that carrot juice, because they oxidize it too quickly. The protein types are parasympathetic dominant, and that's the fast digesters. The carb types are sympathetic dominant, and they're the slow digesters. So that's why they like the carbs and the fruit.
What about the hybrids?
And the hybrids can adapt either way. So then you add in raw foods as your next, right? And there's lots of debate about the best raw food, but the single most common one I have found is raw carrots are the best way to break a fast. Jensen used to say raw zucchini, raw yellow summer squash, you know, the yellow zucchinis. He believed that yellow had an affinity to the colon and frequency, right? So I'll defer to Jensen on that one. I hate zucchini, so
Bernard Jensen, right?
yeah, Bernard Jensen. He was one of the top, you know, cleansing guys of the 20th century. And
Yeah.
Jensen and Royal Lee of Standard Process and Weston Price were regularly meeting
No
in these
way.
high-level meetings.
Wow.
You don't hear about it in public, but the Royal Lee has its own cult following from Standard Process, believe me. And these people are like, I mean, but Royal Lee, I mean, he had a library the size of this house, and somebody could give him a quote, and he'd go, "Oh, it's over in that book over in the corner, page 4, subsection 3."
all right.
The entire library. It was astounding, the stories about this man.
Wow.
And he would channel formulas and channel vitamin formulas, and then they would ask him, "How did you know what to do?" And he goes, "Divine providence." That's how. That's how he died. He said he died of heart problems because the FDA closed down his company twice, and he kept fighting back.
Standard process.
Yes,
Twice.
they shut him down,
Shut down Schultz in LA 2 or 3 times.
but they're still
selling,
around.
Still selling. I
They're
just go
still
there
around.
every time.
So is Schultz.
Yeah, I love Schultz.
So what we're saying, the chart that I'm showing here on the PowerPoint is basically what to remove to get down to a cleansing state. But you can also do the fast way to just go, you know, so the dry fast is a rocky roller coaster. The water fast is a rocky roller coaster. The juice fast can be a rocky roller coaster. Because again, if you're fasting and you're trying to be in public, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
I can't say enough that you need to come to someone like me and get your vitality checked. If your blood pressure is regularly falling 20 points when you stand up, you shouldn't be doing a deep cleanse. That's why we check. I check mine. Mine's falling like 10 to 15 to 20. And my saliva pH is too acidic. And so I have to be dancing around, just jumping in there little bits and lots of sleep. That's the main thing that's been my common link these last 5 days is sleep. Start the cleansing products. And, I think Jonty said he was in bed for 48 hours after the cleansing products. So the more toxic you are, the more longer it takes you to recover from the cleansing stuff. I came out of a pretty good indulgence the last few weeks, traveling around, enjoying myself. So there are different ways to get to it, but if you think I'm going to eat 100% raw, they've cured arthritis with that alone. Back to that.
Yeah.
They've cured type 1 diabetics with a month of raw.
Yeah.
So it tells me back to the Howell work and this, well, we can finish the bioflavonoid and the protein connective tissue. So it turns out a third of your connective tissue is made out of protein. And a third's minerals and a third's water. So we're in a nutrition school where we taught that our connective tissue was a third protein. Never. 4 years bachelor's degree, never once did I hear that mentioned, not even once. But the protein quality you take affects your bone density and bone structure. Not even once was that ever mentioned, and I'm a professional clinical nutritionist. That's pathetic, folks. But that's part of, the system's not broken. It works perfectly for those in control. They don't want us well educated. They don't want us dumbed down and not questioning. But then there's the excited people like us that go, oh, no. We don't trust USA Incorporated. I don't trust Burger King with my driver's license. Like, why should I trust you?
Yeah.
They're just a corporation, like my Facebook post, You put Burger King up there and take off California and be no different. It's a franchise of the Vatican, basically. Disgusting. So cleansing then means we need to avoid stuff like that. And we need to be in a nice, comfortable, safe place while we're cleansing, because I believe our DNA is changing and mutating during these times. But I mean, it already is anyway. So you think when you're cleansing, it's no different? So everybody knows about the autophagy now, the autophagy of the fasters. Well, Calcutta University did a study on it in 1933. And they determined after 72 hours, the body's cells start spontaneously regenerating. In 33 in Calcutta University. But no, the US is full of arrogant pricks that want to take credit for everything when the Indians found out over 100 years ago. The yogis have known for tens of thousands of years. So yeah, you fast and the process of life is inverted to what they call about entropy in chemistry. One seed in nature produces 10 zillion seeds in some cases.
Yeah.
So where's this thing that mankind, we've been trained to think that everything goes into the waste pit, No. Nature organizes chaos. I spent my life studying that. And when you can go beyond belief and faith, then you come along. I go out and sit in the backyard and I know. I don't have to believe or faith. But it took, for some of us, so cleansing brings the clarity that we're missing, that we don't even know we're missing, actually, until we do it. Because I'm going to throw the other audacious statement out here tonight. And I do it myself. Most of us aren't feeling anymore. We're thinking about feeling. We're helicoptering above our feelings. And don't assume you're feeling. I've been doing this deep questioning, this deep suspicion. I don't think I'm actually feeling. And I realize I'm actually helicoptering about half above my body going, fuck, I'm too scared to dip my toe in there because there's so much fear. So, these check-in moments. And when I meditate, it's usually anywhere from 5 minutes to 35 minutes of slog. And then when it's all processed, then the light shows itself. And if I don't meditate, well, maybe it's a little tougher. But it's already there anyways. That's the greatness of knowing. It doesn't matter if you meditate on some level. You can go out there and be in the drama and be in the world, but not of the world. But that's what cleansing gives us, because each time I cleanse, I hope to come out with one less habit. That's always the hope. So I've been on the caffeine one. That's been my main thing, is get off of caffeine and then why do I need this? And I get deluded somehow. I need it again and then I go off of it. I don't even need this. Each of us has gotten off of coffee, has seen that. Coffee doesn't give you energy. Caffeine is a poison. It's a plant insecticide. that we've been somehow brainwashed to believe is good for our productivity. It cuts off 1/3 of our blood flow to our brain. That's an NCBI NIH study.
It's our own government. It's the government. Amazing.
It's the
They're just
corporate
saying it.
Zionist
They're just saying it.
Khazarian banker families that have been trying to run the world for the last 1,500 years. You know, they have some kind of hatred for humanity, I guess, because they're all from somewhere, I guess, else. I don't know.
And spot these ads in the media about how the studies that show that coffee improves your whatever, you know, makes you live longer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's all
Well,
bullshit.
you didn't see any of the Western pricers in nutrition and physical degeneration. Any of those natives drinking coffee every day.
Right.
No way, Jose.
And now and then, it's a medicine to me. If I have an asthma attack or something, I'm doing coffee, I'm doing menthol, I'm doing whatever. Not to take steroids,
Right.
and it works. And coffee will literally get me out of asthma.
It's great medicine. I got a great Adderall story. I had an office manager who one of her dearest friends was addicted to Adderall
Mhm.
and benzos, a bad combo.
Oh, yeah.
So we went after the Adderall first. I go, look, buy yourself one of those huge bulk bags of mate and frickin' use a cup worth if you need to and brew the strongest mate tea you need and just keep doing that to keep yourself off the Adderall. And that's how she got off Adderall, just ridiculously high doses of mate.
Wow.
Because mate has vitamins and minerals and stuff, and at least it's more nourishing than Adderall, which is just pure chemical frequency
They're pushing it.
made by an ego.
They're pushing it all over.
Nature is always our best bet in every possible way, usually. I'm not against drugs and man-made stuff, just take it for what it is, limited. It's limited. I mean, I spent my career studying this. That's why I got a big garden in my backyard. That's the hospital. I mean, I chopped the end of my finger off a couple weeks ago. Literally, I was out in Auburn and I was hacking St. John's wort actually. And I'm an herbalist, so I'm checking in with the plants, you know, when am I supposed to be done kind of thing, honoring and gratitude. And then there was a point where I got this message, I should probably stop. So then my obtuse ego mind comes in and goes, maybe I should stop now. But that was already 5 seconds too late. And I went to hack the next St. John's wort flower and the scissors literally sliced the end of my thumb off, blood spurting. My friend Andrews is like, yes, it's a man thing. He looks at me and I look at him and I better go take care of this. So I'm holding it. And I go down to the garden where I brought in some plants for him. I gave him the wound worts. So I went down to my plantain and my yarrow, chewed it up right on the wound. All pain and bleeding stopped within a minute of those herbs being on the wound. And it was literally. And then not only that, I got so confident after that, I wrapped it up as tight as I could with, I found a napkin on the ground. I didn't even know if it was sterile or not. Put that over the herbs to hold them in place. There was no tape, so I grabbed some old hemp twine and tied hemp twine around my thumb, grabbed the pickaxe and started working on this rock pile with him for an hour.
Wow.
And my thumb didn't even bleed that much anymore.
Amazing. Seaweed works great too. If you put it right over, if you're doing like a deep.
But it doesn't have the astringency.
Interesting.
The plantain has the astringency and the
right.
yarrow has the astringency. That's why they called it Achilles millefolium. Achilles meaning, you know, Achilles back in the Greek days. He gave that you had to have yarrow with you if you were a warrior as your wound wort. Christopher Hobbs thought so much of this plant. He was asked a question by us in a group 20 years ago. If you only had one plant, what would it be? Without hesitation, he said yarrow. It covers everything. It's too drying for me. I choose concrete for my one because I'm a little drier, but well, Christopher also has the liver thing too, so it's hard to say actually. If you scroll down, I'm going to just go through this really quick. Did I finish the protein thing? Yes. So you want to get your protein raw so your connective tissue works. And then the bioflavonoid part comes from flavonols are nature's way of adapting to their environment. So by default, then if we eat plants in our local environment, then we adapt to our environment. It's all about earth, air, water, and fire. And Starhawk spoke to this in the Fifth Sacred Thing, that great book years ago. And we've come to run away from the elements, but sunlight, light, air, heat, water, soil. You know, we've gotten away from earth, air, water, and fire. And pretty much all of them are polluted by the USA Incorporated.
Yeah.
Even light pollution these days, because the chemtrails block the true light now. Don't assume there's no chemtrails. They're spraying out over the Pacific, what they do.
That weird slate blue color.
The dome over the Pacific Northwest, now they've got the new dome. First it was over California for years. This thing just won't move because they've got RF satellites up there shining radio frequency emission on it. It's a big hot bubble they're making from outer space. And we sit here going, ooh, I trust them. We're so stupid. We're so naive. Oh, trust me, we know what we're doing with the weather.
Never trust anybody who says trust me.
Right.
Exactly. Okay,
Dead
so
giveaway.
we got the bioflavonoids done, we got the bone done. So the best way, I got a new client with osteoporosis. What did I tell her? Make sure you're getting a higher quality protein than you are now. And the other part is bone density, has nothing to do with bone strength. Chalk is very dense, breaks pretty easy. Density is not what you're after. And the Chinese have a great way of saying this. Bone follows muscle. Blood follows chi. So by working your muscles, you develop your bones. So like my hip protocols are basically, you do stuff like this, where you're standing up and you're doing this and little circles, and you go on your side and lay on the ground and you get these muscles developed and do these, and then you go down and you lay on the ground and do your bicycles and get this all developed. And that's what we're not working on. We do this all day. And then this is underdeveloped and tight. And we wonder why we got back problems. Because these muscles are too strong and these in the front of the spine are too weak. That's just simple common sense.
You can either just do it anytime, just sit.
You can sit here and start, start
You don't
lifting
even
your
have to
legs
do
up.
that. Just right now, just squeeze your stomach muscles off and on, off and on, off and on.
But you have to lift your leg. The lifting of the leg engages the psoas. You can't
Okay,
do it unless you lift
That's
the leg.
definitely better, but it's pretty nice to have more strength.
I was
And then-
terrific.
In other words, you can just lean back.
Because that was totally motivational.
You can just lean back.
Are you squeezing right now?
I'm about to take things when I leave. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, did it. You just did it for me.
And do Kegels. Get more blood flow down there,
I'm doing that while we're talking.
Develop your PC muscle. Nobody even needs to know, I mean, what do you think I was doing 25, 30 years ago? I wanted to be a better lover, so I was down there pumping away all day in class.
Yeah, I did strength.
And nobody knows what's great. You're doing this
Yeah.
weird thing. You're pumping your PC muscle and just looking normal,
I did that in Silver Spring all the time. Take a muscle.
Yeah, love it.
Humor, motivational speaker, he's got all kinds of things going on.
Yes. So this page, ways to use our cleanse, if you have a little handout out. So if you're actually considering doing a cleanse, then
What page is that?
I have a different, I'm not on the handout, but it says 6 on mine. So there's a table of contents on the first page. It's the ways to use our cleanse page. Hopefully it's labeled.
Four.
So if you want to just eat raw, like do raw dairy, raw meat, raw veggies, raw fruit, your body will start cleansing. Almost guaranteed. And then you don't have to stop eating. But if you've never cleansed before, that's a cleanse for some people. Just do that for a week. Boy, hell. That was the coffee question. Okay, great. So for some people, stopping coffee is a cleanse. And I'll give you an example. I got this buddy. He doesn't do Facebook, he doesn't do social media, but I can't mention his name because I've known him since college. And he was the guy that came out of, he was a Navy on a nuclear sub for 4 years, engineer, scientist guy. We get to be roommates, and he's living with, I won't say free, he's living with the psychic. We were the classic odd couple. And I so 30 years later, fast forward, you can imagine this guy, he doesn't discount anything I say, and he believes in aliens now because of me. So he'll come to see me every now and then, and he's not as much into diet as me. And so he come in and I go, dude, you got fucking horse breath, man. You're rotting from the inside out. I just throw that comment out there. And he goes, what?
What is your breathing?
Sometimes. Because he's got a wife, and his wife had to put up with that shit. Making love to a guy with horse breath. Fuck that, So I'm sticking up for her, I'm sticking up for his wife, I don't want to kiss that mouth, So I'm like, hey, buddy, you got horse breath. And he goes, why do you think? And I go, you use mints and whatnot? He goes, yeah, this doesn't go away. That means your stomach's rotting. Your stomach mucosa is rotting. And you got to work on it now. More greens. That's the first sign of greens is bad breath that won't go away, or bad body odor, or bad farts on the lower end. So this guy, he was on one of those coffee, meat, potatoes things, and he goes on and off of coffee. So you got to get off coffee, bro. Oh, my hip's killing me. It's like, that's the first sign. You got to get off coffee. You can reduce joint pain 50% by going off of coffee alone. Most people can, not everybody. So I said, hey, just drop the coffee. You can forget everything else for a while, but you're gonna need to stop the coffee. Take these chlorophyll pearls, they'll help your breath. And I'm sure his wife loves me by now. So 8 days later, he calls me up and he goes, dude, I got a cold. My 8th day without coffee, I got this weird cold. well, yeah, it's probably a cleansing reaction. And he didn't believe me. He's like, no, there's no connection. And I'm like,
Ah.
dude, you've doubted me too many times the last 30 years and been schooled. So, okay. So he went back on coffee. Pain came back. He's like, fuck. So he went back off coffee again. And then precisely 8 days later, again, got another cold on the second round off of coffee. He goes, what the hell's going on? And I go, think of it like this, dude. The liver is like this guy behind a counter. He's got all these things he's got to process, all the hormones, all the food, all the blood sugars, everything. So it's like a take a number system, you know, you got too many people in line, requests, then the line spilling out the door are symptoms. And you go, coffee is one of those people in line. And you've already got enough to deal with. You have your, what are the 5 toxins, Monica? I live with Johnny on the spot.
So,
There's 5 toxins that conceptually I put together.
so. Oh God, it's always so hard to start it. And then it's harder to finish, but the toxins include all the, I used to go with airborne, but no.
How about we just say microbial toxins is
Yes.
one,
Microbial is one of the ones that.
inner and outer,
Yes.
inside the body and out. So that's one.
Of course, I always want to say chemical and.
Chemicals,
Go through those topics, so,
chemicals. Look at all the chemicals we got in our houses.
yeah,
Raids and roundups and
yeah,
gross stuff, you know,
yeah.
ammonias and
Chemical, yes.
so chemicals,
Yes, and metabolic,
normal metabolic
Gotta help her.
toxins.
um,
That's the third one, your normal metabolic toxins.
metabolics and
2 more. That's great.
it's always so weird.
I mean, if it can help. Anybody else got an idea? 2 more.
Yeah.
Monica's been through it a few times. That's why
Yes,
Johnny
that's
on
why-
the spot.
That's why
of
he's
it.
putting me on the spot.
What's all that called up beside all the toxins in the environment? Is that what did you come down?
Chemical,
Chemical,
microbial, and normal metabolic. So there's 2 more.
environmental, that's all.
it's too-
Environmental.
it's too- That's the
Environmental is
wrong
already
kind of.
chemical.
chemical.
Heavy metal toxins.
Oh,
Heavy metal, yes, thank you. God, it's
And
so
one
weird.
more. It's the one that I've invented, but it appears in Peter Holmes' book, The Energetics of Western Herbs, in his appendix, but I kind of reframed it to make it easier to understand. It's radiation damage induced tissue
Yes.
toxicity.
Big Marilyn Garrett. Radiation damage. We did that one, the 5th one, yeah.
But there's 2 kinds of radiation, though.
Forget her.
There's non-ionizing radiation, and that's the radio frequency stuff we see all around us. It's all this stuff.
Yeah,
And then there's the ionizing radiation. That's like Fukushima stuff.
both kinds.
And so ionizing is by far more damaging, but the non-ionizing is where they sold us out because they
Yeah.
knew this in the 70s that
Yeah.
cell phones were damaging.
Yeah.
You know, just read the book Disconnected. You know, that dude did a good job isolating all that. Carl knows this too.
Yeah.
So we have deal with these 5 things. And normally we would ideally just be dealing with metabolic toxins and microbial toxins only, right? Ideally.
Yeah.
But then we got all the other people in line. So my poor friend, he's like, dude, you got too many people in line. So you got to so your body is actually starting to process some of the mucus and waste. It couldn't because the coffee was too many people in line. So now the coffee guy's not in line anymore. And the guy behind him is the mucus and waste guy. You see? So the guy behind him got to get dealt with.
Yeah.
And it happened to happen on day 8. You know, ideally it happens on day 1 or 2. That's how slow his system was.
So if you're getting radishes for the mucus and stuff, does that work internally too?
Yeah, the mucus. So anytime you can dissolve something that's sticky, it's going to move stuff along faster, right?
So it helps the liver.
And you don't want sticky fluids either. That's why there's this whole thing with blood clotting and, you know, blood thinners but you don't want overly thin blood. You don't want overly thick blood either. You don't want overly thin bile. You don't want overly thick bile. That's what thick bile is, or stones. It's just a continuation of this process of thickening and thickening and thickening. And so bile is made from cholesterol. There's kind of your hint. So if you have a lot of cell membrane waste from radiation damaged tissue, you're probably going to form this. I'm going to go to this in a second. That's for this one. So you're going to form stuff that may not be functional, and the body's trying to get rid of it through the bile.
There's expensive gadgets that tell you how, how thicker thin your blood is, and of course they do it in Western, but would it be worth it some days to find out where we are?
You can do a urine test. I have a urotensiometer, which measures some kind of density of the urine. And then I have another one that McAvoy has. There's 2 ways to measure urine, specific gravity and one other one. And I've got the machine, I got the little bobber for the specific gravity. They use it in beer making. So this ties right in with what are viruses, because this kind of ties in with cleansing. Okay, we're not doing too bad. So when you're, we're just talking about bad smells, right? So when you're toxic, you smell bad, don't you?
Yeah.
What do you think your cells smell like when they're toxic? Remember, the body is composed of fractals. And as Ingrid Neiman, the live blood cell analysis said, she did dark field microscopy for 30 years. And this is her quote. Some of you've already heard this. She said, after 30 years of doing live blood cell analysis and studying live blood cells, I am convinced that individual cells have individual personalities, end quote.
Right.
So we're the captain of the cell and bug ship, and we're mostly not us, which is going to lead into the conversation over there in a minute. So when our cells, this is sort of a conceptual model of a cell and trying to get its waste out and then of course nutrients in. You get nutrients in and waste out. And what are your cell membranes made of?
Phospholipid bilayer.
What's that made of?
Phospholipids.
Fat and cholesterol, mostly. And then there's little proteins that open little gates up, and that's the iodine gateway I talk about, the Symporter system, where the iodine is such a large blob trying to get inside this tight cell that requires a special escort or escalator into the cell called the Symporter system. There's all set of vitamins and minerals or cofactors for that. Let's remember, keep your questions so we can keep this flowing. So we have this cell that's trying to get stuff in and stuff out, and your membranes are made of ideally raw, and but everything's run by enzymes, remember. So that goes back to the cooked food thing. So if you're eating too much cooked food, then you're running into your enzyme reserves that are there in your pancreas to process waste between meals. So if you eat too much cooked food, you don't process waste between meals well. And then these cells get more and more toxic. These cells get more and more toxic because you know, because you smell and you get constipation and bad breath and all that. And then the cell waste, if you will, forms these little protein-like molecules that some people are calling exosomes. You hear this, EXO-SOMES, exosomes. And then you'll see on the little PowerPoint here, I've written cell sweat.
Yes, that's right.
So cells sweat, in a sense, these sort of they're like kind of partial protein molecules. They're like chains of amino acids and waste and whatnot. And it gets taken out and they reform into something based on the consciousness you're living within, I believe. And so this is where it ties in with the 5G, with the COVID. Their fungus loves radiation. Fungus loves mercury. That's right. And what does fungus do in nature? It's its natural job. Eats up rotting matter.
Eats dead matter, yeah.
So we got humans running around eating too much, rotting from the inside out. You plant this weaponized bug out there. That's part of human evolution, as Zach Bush does the best job of anybody talking about viruses. And that by the time they've announced the Delta variant, nature's already made 10 billion new variants. So to me, it's all an IQ test. If you're talking Delta variant, get the fuck away from me. Get the fuck away from me. You're just propagandized. You don't even know anything about anything. You're not even worth talking to. So you out there watching this, wake up. Nature is queen, not the human ego. Certainly not Fauci and Gates. Oh my God. So I had this experiment I did with these apple cider vinegar herbal concoctions, and then this stuff floats around in the bottom, and it really grosses me out. This one might not do it, but we'll let that settle and see if it settles up.
That's that good vinegar, right?
That's apple cider vinegar with poke root and mugwort and all kinds of lymphatic ugly stuff. So I had something like this glass, and it was clear at the time, and there was these little strands of looked like apple cider vinegar mother, but they were brown and green because the herbs had gone through the herbs. I think a mother had started to form some of the sugars in the herbs I had, and I would shake it up and you'd see them all dissipate. And I would put it down, and I had this one glass was sitting there for about 8 hours. And the fucking thing formed, it all came back together and formed into this little blob, this organized blob in the middle of the glass. That's what that's gonna do. What the hell is that? I did a whole Facebook post about it. Shook it up 10 times. It came back into not the same blob, but a blob formation. So the point is, were they ever separate? You know, when I shook it up, was it just these long strings that pulled back together like slinkies?
Right.
That's, what do you think this is? If all of life is connected, then maybe these are connected to your consciousness somehow.
Cell sweat.
Yeah, you got too much crap in your body. That's what we call grief, unresolved grief. It's all stuck in the container. You got to get it out. And that's why our ancestors, when you get a cold, you're given herbs that make you sweat, which was elderflower and peppermint and bone set. And these are all the COVID herbs too. It makes me laugh. I mean, I wanted to go out with an axe and go just chop our county health officer's head off when I started seeing what she was doing. Can't go in the sun? What?
Yeah.
Are you retarded? Like, you get 27 forms of vitamin D from sunlight, you get 1 from a pill. Are you fucking kidding me? They're selling us out. D3 is the only hormone sold over the counter. It's a hormone, folks. It's not a vitamin.
When they announced that last March to not go outside,
I was
the
like-
first thing I did is I went to Shasta and I went outside.
Yeah.
Because the only way I could deal with it, it was so ridiculous.
What am I, an idiot? You know?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we're just standing what's right. But my point, though, is that if you watch this long enough, life has connections that we don't see. And so the virus is part of cell sweat somehow. That's the bottom line punchline. The cells sweat, they reform into something via the consciousness, and then they could call it a virus, but there's amoebas and flukes and worms and bacteria and mycoplasmas and viruses and funguses. And then there's a whole thing that Carl and I know, and that's the bugs that live in and around us, they change to suit the apartment they're living in, or the milieu, or the terrain. Well, there was that word of a pronunciation last week. Did I say it right? Milieu?
Milieu.
Milieu, okay. So the terrain. And Pasteur and Beauchamp were, they were kind of like debating about that. And Pasteur lamented on his deathbed, but the press ran with the whole germ theory. But Pasteur even knew it was incorrect because there was lots of money to be made. That's why. So here we sit now with the latest, and the more people that know this, that viruses are somehow connected to cell toxicity and cell sweat. It helps us evolve. Look at these pig. Zach Bush used the metaphor of the factory farm pig outlet and that stinky pig poop swamp. He goes, if you were to jump in that, you would either evolve or basically die, because you would transmute. You'd have to transmute to survive in this alchemical cooker of mutations going on. And so that's where you want to come in with a good attitude. There's the good attitude part, because the good attitude bugs tend to hang out with good attitude people, I believe.
That's great what you just said. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then we'll bring this one over now.
Love it.
There's Lena right there. Look at that.
Now.
Well, I told a couple of stories the last few weeks that some of you've heard, but so there's a PowerPoint here. You can get access to it. It's called Intestinal and Personal Evolution. So the people watching the recording are getting it right now. I'm going to repeat what I said a couple of weeks ago. Monica heard it, but then we did some more work on it. The title of this slide is "Whose Consciousness?" ? And this is from Dr. Klinghardt. So there are 2 men in Europe that championed this about 15, 20 years ago. I ran across it 10 to 15 years ago in my work. I was thinking about it on my own terms. I was just typing stuff in the internet at the time going, oh my God, there are other people in the same freaky theory about how consciousness is affected by my gut bugs. And like, wow, there's actually other people thinking about this stuff. I'm not that weird after all,
Not even psychedelic.
And here's the quote from Klinghardt. "We are all a composite of many personalities." Next sentence, "Chronic infections outnumber our own cells by 10 to 1. Chronic infections outnumber our own cells by 10 to 1. I think what he's trying to say is bugs outnumber our own cells. We are 90% quote other and only 10% us quote. Our consciousness is a composite of 90% microbes and 10% us. Our thinking, feeling, creativity, and expression are 90% from the microbes within us. Patients often think, crave, and behave as if they are the parasite. Look at humans on the planet. Our thinking is shaded by the microbes thinking through us. Our thinking is shaded by the microbes thinking through us. The food choices, the behavioral choices, and who we like is the thinking of the microbes within us expressing themselves.
Who we like.
My bugs like your bugs, I told my girlfriend.
Who said this?
He did.
This is Klinghardt.
No.
That was a quote from Dr. Klinghardt.
Yeah.
And then the next slide I have is getting to work. You're in control. You're the chooser. They're not. You're the captain of the bug ship. Make good choices. Because they're eating and they're pooping inside you. Remember microbial toxins?
That's why it's so powerful to say, make thy will be my will to your soul. Because your soul has a much better idea than the bugs and their ego problems.
right. That's right.
That's the best reason for being spiritual, to just let your soul know you want soul impressions.
Let's see, this is a little too much, but I'm just going through the slides. There's 7 things involved in a healthy gut. I'll let you think about those and then I'll summarize them next week. I already talked about them a few times already. But these are the things when a client comes in and they've got gut problems, this is what goes through my mind. And I'll guarantee you that if anybody gets all 7 without looking at it, I'll give you a free hour massage. That's how confident I am that no one will get it.
He's underestimating us, everyone. Come
I'm
on.
daring you.
Let's
What are
go.
the 7 things?
Should we get it combined?
That'd be
No,
interesting.
you said one person.
The winner. If every single person gets it, then I'll be a busy man. I guess.
You just said one.
You just-
I did say one?
person. One person would have to get them all.
But that's pretty arrogant of me to think
Yeah,
only one of you
why
is
don't
going to
we
get it.
collaborate? you know?
So you're saying each person who gets all 7 would get a 1 hour massage.
Yeah.
On your own. If you work
I would have to
together,
write it
bets are
down.
off. It's not a take home. It's what do they call those final exams?
Open book.
It's not an open book exam.
I'm trying to negotiate for something. That's not working. So let's see who's the smarty.
Here's the. I'm going to finish this up in a couple of minutes. This is basically the slide here. There's a slide for this too. There's lower valence organisms, lower charge, lower chi, lower life force organisms. And look at the first word on this one. This is Gunther Enderlein, Enderlein. Gunther Enderlein came up with this. And there's a theory running about this. And I have the link for it in the PowerPoint. So the lowest valence bug family, Mucor racemosus. Mucor kind of sounds like mucus, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. And then as we evolve, or these things evolve through us, scary enough, then Aspergillus niger, black mold. Isn't Niger black?
Mhm. Yeah.
Niger? So Aspergillus is a large fungus family genus, but guess what? Miso is also an Aspergillus, Aspergillus oryzae. In other words, the mold that grows on rice. That's how they make all the stuff from rice, amazaki, and stuff from rice, miso. So higher valence, right? And then finally, the highest level that they've isolated, and I don't even really understand it myself, but there's this form of penicillin, Penicillium chrysogenum. That's the highest valence they have in terms of the bug evolution. They have various problems in our body that are related to each one of these valences, and it's gone through in this PowerPoint. There's a series of PowerPoints for the summer cleanse. There's 5 of them, but 3 of them, weeks 2, 3, and the ending week, go through this in detail. Through the power, and you can get access to the PowerPoints. It's on the website, I believe. So somehow, I believe what they believe, that somehow our reincarnation cycle is tied into what they're craving through us. And to free ourselves up from the animal or the bugs, we've got to bring in the soul. And that's why we fast. is to test the power of our will. Well, we were talking about this the other day, and fear, because we had remember the natural law class, we were talking about fear that week. So how do you overcome fear? It presents itself. So in Chinese medicine, they have the negative emotion and they also have the antidote. So what's the antidote to fear? Bravery, exposure, sure, those are correct. But in their world, they have something else. It's related to what I just said. Willpower. Lars knows, 20-foot waves out there. I could die, I'm full of fear. Willpower says I'm going out there, right? I have the will to face my fear. All people with COVID, those who faced their fears during COVID, okay, you did. You're not a germaphobe anymore. She faced her fears. She's not a germaphobe anymore.
It's just an irony, I think.
High five.
Yeah.
They're nice.
Give yourself
it
credit now.
Tells us.
Yeah.
It's more rebellion.
Not just
It's more rebellion. She's being honest.
Yeah.
But it's still something
Come
to
give
get
me
overcame.
terms.
Rebellion.
Hey, but rebellion got you to not be a germaphobe. So
That's right. So it really makes us re-examine free will.
that's right, it does.
Oh, yeah.
Most of us, our microbes are pooping out things that fog our consciousness. And we think we're clear and we're not.
Are we like half clear at all?
I don't know where you're at. I know that like today, I was about a fourth here. You know, I was off in Neverland and I felt best lying down and just napping in the other world all day, you know. That's where I wanted to be. But I couldn't because I had people that needed me, you know. So it's like, oh, I'm not gonna help. So yeah, it's made me wonder I've been wondering for 15 years, like who the fuck's actually, what is this thing I call me, you know? Which is why I do the natural law classes, and the start of our whole clinical sequence is you, the study of me. I need to study myself, because if I don't know myself, what basis do I have to judge anything outside of me? Nothing, none, zero, because I'm judging from an unclear place. That's why we started also off with discernment. If you're not discerning, then you're not clear. Judgment involves cloud, emotional polarity. Discernment does not. Discernment says light is shining on the corner of the room. Judgment says, I fucking hate lights. You see the difference? One's very neutral. One's full of emotion and polarity. And that's what we're supposed to do with our gyroscope right in here. Like, oh, it doesn't feel right. Maybe I should not listen to this, but listen to this. How many times have you done that? About 10,000 on my side. Like, God damn, I wish I would listen to that tiny voice down there. Don't do it. How many times do you do it, you know?
Yeah, then barely audible.
The voice of truth doesn't demand a lot of attention in us because it doesn't have to.
It's very soft.
The loudest voice in us is the one you don't want to listen to.
So true.
But it's hard to not, you know. If you got 3 layers of anxiety and a panic attack going, you know, you're just trying to make it through the panic attack, right? So there's a whole thing about this slide up now is about a normal biofilm. So you look at your tongue and that tells you whether you have a normal biofilm. If you have a big, thick, gross coat and your tongue's discolored, it's not pink, then you start your work from there. Because I'm a tongue expert. I use it as part of my assessment system. Anybody who knows me knows that. You know, I'll tell you partially what's on your lab work based on what I see in your tongue and your iris and sclera. So the tools we have for medicine, the cheap and inexpensive tools are what I'm championing. Your CAT scan is your eyes and your tongue. You can do hand reading, you can do foot reading. It's all there. The MRIs, what we need, don't cost us anything. The MRIs they're charging us for are toxic to our cells. Even the MRIs are. Magnetic resonance imaging.
Yeah.
I don't think magnetic fields going through our cells is that great.
Actually,
X-rays.
The original name is atomic magnet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
That's the original name. They cut off, they
Oh
left
my
off atomic.
God. Well, I was off.
Thank you for
X-ray
telling
so
me.
long, But I was on MRIs, and the last MRI I took was a TELSA, and it almost blew me out of the room. I was like,
What?
oh, terrible. Yeah, they now have the MRIs that are far stronger.
Oh
And I
no.
experienced one. And it's just that I was off X-ray so long, I need to find something out. And I'm glad I did. I needed to find something out. Then I'd rather do it by magnetic than radiation.
What does Carl do for something like this?
PETA scan.
A what?
PETA scan. Energetic, it's awesome.
Energetic scan. See,
Right?
he's got a
Yeah, so
solution.
there you go.
He's got
No
I
figured
need
Carl had a
MRIs
solution for
anymore,
this.
so no need
So
for MRIs.
plugs in your energy field. And essentially, it's like you got an MRI, the way that it
Mhm.
reads everything and
Mhm.
constantly blows people away
Mhm.
because it tells so much.
And you don't hear about stuff like this because it's cheap and easy.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's so sensitive, I can't use it. It's
Really?
attuned to him. I can't run it
Mm.
even on him.
Mm.
I
Really?
have to buy my own $15,000 version to do it on people.
So there is a price point. there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there's a price point for sure. But then on top of it, his MD makes it useful.
Yes, yes.
I could do, some tiny portion of it and be
Right.
valuable, but
Mhm.
because he knows all the anatomy and all the
Mhm.
functions for 50 years, he can do it.
Mhm.
But
You can also do thermography, to a certain
Oh, yeah.
degree, thermography is always available. I tell all my breast ladies, don't get that stupid mammogram anymore. Why do you do that
I've
torture to
never had
yourself?
one, but my protocol is I do get a couple manual every 12 months manual exam, and then I do get an ultrasound. I believe in sound for that. There's a big picture, and the pressure is great. A lot of people won't like the pressure, but there's a lot of doctors now putting it through on insurance, and I think a lot of women are feeling really comfortable with that too. So thermography, ultrasound, manual exams by someone other than yourself, a combination.
even
of
by
that.
yourself, doing it regularly,
Sure.
then you're still.
Absolutely.
You're in tune, like, hey, there's a lump there,
You feel so much, and you rub things
I used
out.
to do it
and
every month. I
massage
backed off a
so
little
much.
bit, but it's a great thing to do.
Get a lever too and let them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish you the best.
Tonight, the best statement, I thought it was from this gentleman, but get a lover. Get a lover, okay.
Yeah.
You're the one-liners.
Breast.
You're the one-liners in this crowd, right?
Rub the breast for you and, yeah.
Yeah, that's the best exam.
Oh, boy.
Breast exam.
Cover it
breast
all
exam.
here, in this room.
What time is it? Time check.
It's
I'm a-
9:36.
Okay. A couple more quotes and we'll end this thing. I have the slide up that I've said it before, but for the newcomers, what we do not digest digests us. So don't overeat.
So true.
You get rotted out from the inside out, and the funguses are more than happy to eat that waste up.
Or go and work out and let your body use it for energy.
Dr. Natasha Campbell, the founder of the gut and psychology syndrome, she was asked at a Weston Price seminar years ago about bugs and gut rot and all that, and the person had kind of a victim complaining attitude, and she goes, I think we should all stop playing the victim for our gut rot.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love, she's very direct, and so she basically shut this person down and said, stop overeating is what she was basically saying. Stop blaming the bugs, they're just doing their job. They like to eat rot. You're rotting. It's a perfect match.
Overeating.
It's the chooser. It goes back to foundation one. The chooser is broken. Why? And then we go to that natural law class. So there's fear and unprocessed material from age 0 to age 8, 9, or 10. Gabor Mate came to the same conclusion I did. We've got this unprocessed material that's stuck in our soul.
0 to 8 or 0 to 10.
Somewhere in there, 0. Sometimes even in the womb, people get traumatized because the mother's around scary movies and they used to train women in this
Scary
shit.
doctors.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But they would tell women in Japan and ancient Orient, like, don't be around fearful things when you're pregnant because the kids get a sponge for all that. They're not sheltered.
Vulnerable,
Yeah. Frequency, vibration. You go sit in a movie theater with Freddy Krueger and shit, all that fear you're feeling. You think kids aren't feeling that?
They're feeling
Give me a
that.
break.
I felt it.
That's
It was
trauma,
bad. It was
yeah.
traumatic.
Or a violent abusive husband,
Mhm.
Yeah, sure.
Right, yeah.
even closer to
No
home.
wonder there's so much about, horror movies and
Mhm.
zombie movies.
Mhm.
You go.
It's
to
working perfectly.
those red boxes where you can rent movies.
Outside the
Oh, yeah, yeah.
store.
That's
right.
That's all garbage.
Of course it is.
Demonic BS, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
There's nothing good there.
What was the use of the wood of the holly plant? Very few people question this.
Yeah, the Hollywood.
Wait, she's onto something here. What do they use the wood of holly for?
Maybe they divined it was a witch's stick that they used.
The maker of illusion.
Yeah.
Oh, Holly.
It made you
That's all-
hallucinate.
that's acting, right?
Ooh.
You see the play on words?
Oh,
Hollywood,
yeah.
the makers of illusion.
Yeah.
It's right in our face. This is Batman Joker stuff. The Joker always had to tell the Batman, in a joke what his crime was going to be, and they're doing it to us. They're always telling us what they're doing. It's right in our face.
Yeah.
here, we're doing this, Agenda 2030, it's right there, World Economic Forum, it's all right there. The corona at the center of everything on the
Luciferase.
luciferase,
Yeah.
adrenochrome.
They got pushed way back. It used to be agenda 21 or 30.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be
So the
agenda
50.
never.
Yeah.
Well, there's the awakening, and then there's the, from my meta view, because I've studied a couple of, the last age of Atlantis, related to Noah's Ark, is that I believe that the beings in control have been controlling this planet for thousands of years, and that the slave species, which is us, wakes up, and then they shut everything down, and they let a few survive, and then they let the cycle repeat itself. The humans go back to primate, and they shut it down, and then 12,000 years later they evolve again. And they shut it. So my fear is they're going to shut us all down before we wake up fast enough, because they can control the weather.
I don't think they're gonna do
And
this.
so what do you do with that fear?
This just has to sit, and I have to keep giving.
Feel it.
No denial. That's got to stay.
Willpower to keep going.
Yeah, we all see that. That's why that picture's there. What do you think that picture's there for? The only way is forward. Can't look back anymore. Can't go back because that bridge behind me is burning. That's the metaphor I got. Like I got no time to rest. I got to keep going. We're in World War III.
That is for sure.
No, I'm not. I'm
No,
not
that's-
deluding myself.
no,
That's
no,
why I
that's
do
absolutely
men's
true.
groups and this group and natural law groups and one-on-ones and push myself to the edge because, I wish I would have had me 30 years ago. Fuck. But I didn't have me. I was in the darkness trying to find my way around.